Good afternoon, everyone. We will just wait a couple of minutes to make sure people are logging in. So we will get started here in just a couple of minutes. Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you all for joining us today with our health professional webinar. Today's topic is TAND in the first 3 years, early clues, practical management, and referral pathways. On your screen right now, you'll find details on how to do the nursing continuing professional development CEUs. So be sure to attend the entire session and you will complete a participant evaluation online and you'll get that notification tomorrow, but we'll get into those details here in a second. So for those nursing, that is the disclosure agreement. And before we start, I do want to just clarify a couple of things for the CEUs. You must attend the entirety of the webinar to receive credit. Within 24 hours of the ending of this webinar, you will receive an email with information on how to obtain the CEUs. And 10 days is the number of days that certificates may take up to after your survey submission, depending on the volume of attendees. So it can take up to 10 days after you do your survey submission, but hopefully it doesn't take that tomorrow you will receive an email with links tomorrow you'll receive an email with links with those survey questions so that you can obtain your CEUs. All right. And for our social workers, here is the disclosure. If you are a social worker and would like a free 1-hour CEU, this webinar has been approved for 1 hour by the University of Texas at Austin Office of Professional Development School of Social Work. This includes social work, L.P.C, marriage and family counselors, psychologists, and general contact hours. The views and opinions expressed during this presentation do not necessarily reflect those of the School of Social Work or the University of Texas, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial practices, or organizations imply endorsement by the school or the university. Today's presenters are Dr. Gipson and Ms. Laura Buckner. And Laura likes to do her own introduction, so I'll let her do that whenever she presents. But Dr. Gipson is a pediatric neurologist and nationally recognized expert in Tuberous Sclerosis Complex, otherwise known as TSC. and related neurodevelopment disorders with strong focus on early identification and intervention in young children. She has led multidisciplinary clinical programs and research initiatives aimed at improving outcomes for individuals with TSC, particularly in understanding and managing TSC-associated neuropsychiatric disorders, or TAND. Through her work, Dr. Gipson has played a key role in translating emerging research into practical, family-centered care strategies, equipping both clinicians and caregivers with tools to recognize early signs and navigate complex care needs and access appropriate support. She is also an active collaborator in national and international efforts to advance clinical care standards and expand awareness of TSC and related conditions. I'm not sure if Dr. Gipson has joined the meeting yet, but if not, we can have Laura Buckner go first. So let me stop sharing.
Have we seen Dr. Gipson yet? Chris?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll just start then. Dr. Gipson let us know right at the last minute that she had to get out of a meeting right at noon and asked if she could go second. And so that's what we're going to do. So hi, y'all. My name is Laura Buckner. Let me share my screen. Hold on a minute. You'd think this would be easier to do, but it's not. There it is. You can see my screen, yes?
Yes, we can see it. If you can go into presenter mode.
Okay. Presenter mode. Where's that? Is it like, did that work?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Well, hi, y'all. My name is Laura Buckner, and I'm gonna get back. I got to get out of this because it started on the wrong slide. Shoot. All right, y'all. Sorry about this. Best laid plans sometimes don't work. Okay, there we are. So my name is Laura Buckner, and I work with the University of Texas at Austin in the what we call a UCED, University Center of Excellence in Developmental Disability. It's a mouthful. I've been there 20 years. I like to say I was remote before remote was a thing because I don't live anywhere near Austin. But I am a former special educator. I'm a licensed professional counselor, but I always like to say my most important degree is my MOM degree. And this particular webinar is of very close and personal interest for me because my son is diagnosed with Tuberous Sclerosis Complex. Diagnosed at the age of 3 months, 36 years ago. So he was diagnosed before we had a gene marker or two. We went years before we found out his was a sporadic mutation. We do not carry the gene. And I had never heard of TAND until I went to the Tuberous Sclerosis, the TSC Alliance World Conference 4 years ago. And they introduced the concept of TAND, which when Dr. Gipson gets on, she's going to go into more detail about what exactly TAND is, what it means. But I met Dr. Gipson at that conference. My son and I both met her. When they introduced the concept of TAND, I said, boy, I applaud you on this. I could have told y'all this 30 years ago, but I didn't have the research or medical credentials behind my name. We have lived with TAND behind closed doors for 30 years. And so I want to talk to you about how to manage a tough set of circumstances because TAND presents a tough set of circumstances. This is my family. This is me and my husband, and David's in the middle. We actually went ziplining in Oregon this summer, and we were there. He was so excited. He yelled like Tarzan all the way down. But I want to share with you some work that comes from an organization I've been a part of for 20 years called the Learning Community for Person-Centered Practices. And it's about understanding not just what's important for somebody, but what's important to them. So let me talk a little bit about that. Important to, important for, and the balance between. Important to is anything that helps a person, anybody on the planet, anything that helps any of us feel happy, satisfied, content, comforted, fulfilled. And all of these bullet points are included under those things. I always talk about my thermos. I carry this thermos with me everywhere I go. It'd be really easy to say that purple thermos is important to Laura, but you'd have to have a conversation with me to find out it's much more than that. It's about the color. I love purple. It's about what's in the drink. It's about the fact that I like really, really cold, icy drinks. I never drink hot drinks. And then you start getting down to the detail of what's important to me just around that one simple thing. So it's about having purpose and meaning in our lives. It's about having status and control in our lives. We found out a few years ago when we had the pandemic, we found out what it was like, all of us did, what it was like to lose what was important to us, because we all of a sudden weren't able to go where we wanted to go with the people we wanted to be with and do the things we wanted to do. Our rituals, our routines were all a mess. Some of us were homeschooling kids at our kitchen tables, and the others of us were working from our kitchen tables or from our bedrooms because our rituals and routines were messed up. Our rhythm and pace of life was askew. Fortunately for most of us, the pandemic ended and we went back to what was important to us. But a lot of people with disabilities and medical complexity continue with lives not getting what's important to them. My son works at our local Habitat for Humanity Restore, and I told the boss several years ago, he has a shirt that he wears every when he's at work that says Habitat for Humanity Restore staff. I told his boss, we need like 10 of those shirts. He said, well, he's only here 3 days a week. And I said, yeah, but he wears that shirt everywhere he goes. That's about status, y'all. The fact that he has the word staff on there when he goes out in public, people know he's an employee. He's important at the workplace he works. That's about status. Those are things that are important to us. Anything that helps you feel satisfied, content, fulfilled, happy, comforted. And it even goes to how you define quality of life. But sometimes people will say something's important to them, but their behavior will say something else. We certainly see that in the disability world. And you need to ask yourselves why. It's usually because we have done a really good job of teaching our kids and adults with disabilities how to tell us what they think we want to hear. And we need to get beyond that. This is unfortunately where our focus usually lies, is on important for. And it's all about health and safety. It's about making sure they see the doctor when they're supposed to. And with this disease, we see a lot of doctors. We have a lot of medical complexity that we have to deal with, medications that we're dealing with, MRIs and other types of tests that we're dealing with. We promote wellness and with a good diet and good exercise. And we certainly want to keep our loved ones free from fear or being taken advantage of, being safe. And it's even about helping that person be seen as a valued contributing member of that community, their community. David wearing that shirt that says staff on it is part of being a contributing member of his or her community. And I see an email, Gladys, from Dr. Gipson looking for the link to log on, just FYI. So it's not about important to versus important for, because they both matter. And unfortunately, like I said, many of us dealing with somebody with tuberous sclerosis complex, medical complexity, neurological complexity, we get laser focused on what's important for the person, and we sometimes lose sight of what's important to our loved one. Both of those things matter, and they work together. I tell this to medical professionals all the time. None of us, not our kids, not our loved ones, not even you and me, none of us willingly does what's important for us, health and safety, unless something about that is important to them. I often use my dogs as a good example. This is Coda on the left and Willow on the right. And if you know anything about dogs in Texas, they have to take a heartworm preventative. It's a pill once a month that they have to take to make sure that they don't get a mosquito-borne disease that will kill them, heartworm. When I take the box out once a month out of the pantry for the heartworm pills, it says on the box, flavored like a treat. And you can see Willow, she's excited on the right. She thinks it really is a treat, and she'll take it right down. So let's do an important 2-4 sort. Heartworm pill, is that important 2 or important 4? Hopefully you know that it's important 4. It's about their health and safety. Now Coda on the left, he knows this is not a treat. I can do whatever I want. I'll find it behind the living room couch. He will find a way not to take that pill. So let's do another important 2-4 sort. Heartworm pill, important 2, or excuse me, peanut butter, important 2 or important 4? Hopefully you know that peanut butter is important 2. I can't say to Coda, now Coda, you take this pill, I'll give you some peanut butter. That isn't going to work. I have to take that heartworm pill and wrap it up in a ball of peanut butter, and he'll take it every time. And that's what we're talking about here when I say you have to wrap what's important for the person. There has to be a connection to something that's important to them, or they're not likely to do it. My son goes to the Tuberous Sclerosis Clinic in Houston, and I see one of my favorite nurses online, Claire. We have a nephrologist there, Dr. Samuels, who is brilliant at this. When he wants to talk to my son about his kidney disease and how he's managing it, he starts out by asking my son about his running career. My son's a distance runner. He loves to run. He runs almost every night. So Dr. Samuels will ask, how much are you running? How far are you running? And then they get into, so how are you managing what water you drink and your kidney health when you're running? Dr. Samuels is tying what's important for David, kidney health, with what's important to David, his running career. And they influence each other. It's not one versus the other. They're both important. And none of us will do what's important for heartworm pill willingly unless there's a piece of it, peanut butter, that's important to them. And that balance is dynamic. It's always changing. It's not something we can just determine once a year and be done. So I want to show you a tool that we teach in the learning community that I have found really helpful and useful, and I've been teaching it all over the country for years. We call it the learning log. And you could use this with your child or adult with tuberous sclerosis when you're trying to figure out how to fix something or how to address a problem or an issue that you're dealing with. And the way you fill it out, you start on the left with you just write down the date and you say, so what did the person do? Where were they? When did this happen? How long did it go on? And with tuberous sclerosis, TAND, sometimes the things we might be dealing with are some real behavioral challenges, property destruction, aggression. So you would say, what did the person do? Well, they tore up my television, or they hit their brother, or whatever. You write that down. Who was there? You might write down whoever was was present when this occurred. And then you ask yourself, so what did I learn about what worked well? What was my response as a parent or a staff person or a medical professional? What was my response that went well, that worked well in this situation? Was there something that the person liked about the way we handled that? Because if it went well and they liked it and it was good, then that needs to stay the same. Then you ask the last question. So what did you learn about what didn't work well? What blew up in your face when this happened, that you tried something and it just didn't work at all? In fact, it probably exacerbated the situation or whatever. What did the person not like about what you tried? Because all of that tells us what needs to be different. And I will tell you that it's like a learning-focused, structured progress note. You focus on a very specific topic area, a very specific situation you're trying to deal with. And it's just a way to record your learning to move you toward an identified goal that could maybe find some resolution for you. It's not intended to go on for years and years and years, although I'll show you one that I did when it did. It's intended to be really intense learning for a specific situation. This is one that I did for my son years and years ago. We changed his name because it was used in the learning community's curriculum all over the country and even outside of the country. So we called him Andrew. And this we showed how it progressed over a series of years. You can see in October 1995, and this, we didn't know what TAND was. We'd never heard of that. But you can see we were certainly seeing exhibitions of TAND. I said, what did the person do? He pulls his hair, he pulls people's hair, he hits, he pinches, he screams. Who's there? His mom, his dad, and his younger brother. What did we learn that worked well? We haven't yet figured out what works well in the heat of the moment. We have learned that spending a lot of time with him and talking with him once the rage is over is important because he's devastated once he calms down. And what did we learn that didn't work well? It doesn't work well to yell at him. Trying to hold him down does not work. He's devastated once he calms down. If you move on down the page to July of 2002, the third line, I said, what did the person do? Well, the rages are not as frequent, but sometimes they're more volatile because he got older. Who was there? His mom, dad, grandparents might be there, a service provider. What did we learn that worked well? Well, we noticed that the more he escalates, the more we have to stay calm. We have to use a calm tone of voice, non-threatening body language. Suggesting that he walk away and talk about it later works every now and then, but we have to make the suggestion early in the process or it will be too late. And some new daily medication was helpful. What we found did not work was threatening a punishment seems to escalate the anger rather than getting him to stop. While taking an unthreatening demeanor is helpful, we couldn't allow our demeanor to be too vulnerable because he was likely to take advantage of that. Again, he's always devastated when the rage is over. He hates the rage. It is not who my son is, but TAND can turn him into somebody he doesn't want to be. And then you go on down to February 2012, the rages were continuing to decline in frequency as well as intensity. Yay. What did we learn that worked well? As a family, we really get the important 2-4 balance. When his life is in balance, he's happy, fulfilled, incredibly optimistic. The first symptom of an imbalance will be a grouchy attitude that escalates over a period of days or weeks. And it's our red flag that we need to look at what's not working for him. And taking that approach has made a huge difference for him. Distance running. He was a distance runner beginning in the 7th grade, and he still is today. He's 36 years old now. It continues to be a big help. The release of endorphins is huge in helping with TAND. And twice weekly massage was also helping with important 2 and 4. And what we found out was not working. There were things still important too that we hadn't been able to figure out. We have to work harder at helping him to continue to work forward in his adult life, meet his goals, see progress in himself. That was a learning log that I did years and years ago. But this is one I did just the other day. So we're at present day. What does David do? He's asked to help with a chore or something he'd rather not do, something that will use his personal time, which he takes very seriously. Who's there? It's usually me or my husband, his dad. What we've learned has worked well. What does the person like about it? What needs to stay the same? We've learned preparation is key. He doesn't like surprises. He is planning his day in his own head. Even if he doesn't have a real sense of time frames or clearly defined plans, he doesn't have a lot of executive functioning skills, but he has plans in his head. And so what we've learned does not work well is asking for help without any warning, especially if it's on a day off from work or an evening when he wants to play on the internet. What we've learned, the next line, what we've learned has worked well. Text him ahead of time. Let him know what's coming, what's going to require his time and assistance, and talk with him about what he and we can do when the task is finished, like going out to eat is always a good draw. Talk to him about how long it's going to take or how long we think it will take. What doesn't work, we don't ask for help if he has likely not eaten because food is key. And lastly, I said what did work, what is working in this present day is frequently acknowledging his adulthood and looking for opportunities for things he can do on his own, like running an errand, picking something up, delivering something, he's doing some volunteer work with a local nonprofit serving homeless people. And that is really making a big difference. What doesn't work, we cannot appear like we're spying or tracking him, even though he's given permission to do so. We only use the tracking device when it's necessary. That is a learning log. And I hope that makes sense to you. I want to show you one other tool, and we will have this in a handout for you, but one other tool that we use in the learning community is called the 4+1. It's another problem-solving tool. You start with the first column. You figure out what problem are we trying to deal with, and with TAND, it might be with a behavioral issue. That's often the concern. So the first column, you ask yourself, so what did I try with this behavioral issue that we're trying to resolve? What did I learn based on what I tried? Be as specific as you can about what did you learn from what you tried, because sometimes you'll find out what you tried really blew up in your face. Okay, what we learned is that doesn't work really well. Or what we learned was, okay, taking a softer tone of voice really helps. What are you pleased about? Third column. What aspects really worked well? What gave you, what do you want to keep doing? What is, because if it's working well, if it's helping, you want to continue it or even improve it. And the last column is, what are you concerned about? What didn't go well? What do you not want to continue? What needs to change? And then the last one, the last column, the last question at the bottom is the +1. Based on what you've learned, what you were pleased about, what you want to keep doing or improve, and based on what you learned you don't want to keep doing because it doesn't work well, you look at all that information you've gathered, and then you think about, what can I do next? That's your +1. What do I want to try next? And it's 4 columns. You spell that out like that, and you could address it with any kind of issue you're dealing with. Maybe you're talking about how to help your son with math skills. We are constantly working on money management. And so you could do a 4+1 about money management. What are we pleased about right now? My son is working 3 days a week. We get his paycheck out of the bank once a month because he uses a credit card in our name. We get his paycheck out once a month. I get it out in small bills, and I set it in a huge stack in front of him, and I say, okay, let's count this. And we've been doing this for years. He's 36 now, but I'm happy to say he knows if he puts 5 $20 bills in a pile, that's $100. So what am I pleased about? He's learning to count money slowly, but we're learning about it, right? You could use that for just that kind of example. The last thing I want to talk about as I close and get ready to turn it over to the fabulous Dr. Gipson is to tell you to get connected. The TS Alliance is a fabulous resource for us. People all over the country that you can talk to. There are all kinds of people dealing with the same issues you are, or who know people who are. And the resources at the TS Alliance, the TSC Alliance, are invaluable. You'll see at the top right, they have a whole link for resources, and there's videotapes, there's fact sheets, there's more than you can imagine is there. So get connected with the TSC Alliance if you're not already. I think Dr. Gipson is going to talk about this in a minute, but there is a TAND overview, and you want to know about that. That's on their website. Get connected on Facebook. Check Facebook. There are a lot of Facebook groups specific to TSC. I know there's a few of them that I'm in, like Moms with TSC Warriors, Moms with Little TSC Kiddos. That's for moms who have little kids, like very young. The TSC Alliance is on Facebook. There are even groups in the UK and elsewhere that you can be a part of on Facebook. A more recent resource, and I think Dr. Gipson will talk about this again also, is the Tandem 2. And it's a way, I have looked at it and joined it. It's a way to go in and you register to use the TAND Toolkit app. It's a toolkit that they've come out with. What I would have given to have had that toolkit 30 years ago, dear God. But you then given a set of questionnaires, and you complete the questionnaires in the app 5 times over a 1-year period, and it's sharing your TAND journey with experts who are studying TAND and looking for better ways to deal with TAND and the concerns that it brings. So you can register there, and we'll have it in the handout as well. The last thing I'll talk about, and this is specific to Texas, is that, well, it's not specific to Texas in terms of most states have a Medicaid waiver, but in Texas, the Medicaid waiver wait list is 12 to 18 years long. And so I tell people, if you're working with somebody with a child has Tuberous Sclerosis Complex, get them on the wait list as soon as possible. I talk to people with very young babies, and so we got to get you on this wait list. If you're in another state, you just Google Medicaid waivers, and it will talk about the programs in your state and what the eligibility requirements are. Some states don't have waiting lists, but there's usually every state has a series of different Medicaid waivers, what they offer, they can provide, what services they can provide, and how you qualify for those. There's a link here in the blue that is to a website called Navigate Life Texas, and it explains Medicaid waivers in parent-friendly language. They do a really good job of explaining it in ways that families like us can understand. When you add your name to a Texas waiver interest list, you don't have to qualify for the services to get on the list. You don't have to even know what the services need to be or what the child's going to qualify for to get on the list. All you have to do is sign up on the list, give them some basic demographic and personal information. You'll be given an ID number, and you can check that ID number on your Texas benefits to keep up with your number where you are on the wait list, as well as if you change any contact information. You know, God forbid you move and you don't change your contact information and your child or somebody's name comes up on that wait list and they can't find you, your name falls off the wait list. So you don't want to keep that information updated. There's some helpful phone numbers. We'll put that in the handout as well. And I'm going to close with that. I know we have some time at the end of our webinar for questions, but I want to happily turn it over to Dr. Gipson, who, listen, she knows her stuff. We ready?
We were.
Okay.
Hang on, an email just came in from her.
Oh, she says, I rejoined from my computer. I saw a link from her just now, an email from her just now.
There she
I
is.
met Dr. Gipson. Go ahead.
Okay, Dr. Gipson, you should be good to go.
Yay, welcome.
Hi, great to see you guys today. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I have raved about you, so I built you up.
Oh, and thank you for your wonderful presentation, Laura. You are such a blessing. You and David are amazing. So I'm so grateful to be presenting today. Am I displaying my slides? You want me to just hit share?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I can hit share here. Okay. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I may know my TAND stuff, but I definitely am not doing a great job with my tech stuff. But I am trying. Let's see.
And if you can't find it, one of us can share your slides.
Okay.
The big thing is Microsoft in their infinite wisdom put the share button right next to the leave button. So
Oh, there you go.
Oh my
You did it.
goodness. Can you guys
did
see
it.
it now?
You did
yeah,
it.
you're good. You go ahead and
Okay.
hit presenter mode and you'll be good to go.
Perfect. Perfect. I just stopped clicking stuff. Oh shoot, it went away. Let's do it again. Oh, so share. And then I'll do slideshow from the beginning. All good?
Looks
Perfect.
great. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So continuing on, and again, just so grateful to be here, so grateful to share with you guys. I'll start with my objectives. So I'm going to talk a little bit about defining TAND and TSC, discuss some key ways to identify TSC in similar conditions, and define and describe the natural TAND clusters, and then delineate different treatment options. So one way to look at TAND and to define it is TSC-Associated Neuropsychiatric Disorders. And we like this umbrella as a depiction of what we're looking at, because TAND isn't just necessarily one thing, and it can present in different ways in different people. And so there's these different levels: the intellectual level, behavioral level, psychiatric, academic, psychosocial, and neuropsychological. And it's not that we see all these things in everybody, but that different people can have different profiles. And so we like to use that as a demonstration. So what is TSC specifically? It stands for Tuberous Sclerosis Complex. It can impact nearly every aspect of the body from head to toe. So just like the TAND levels are different, there's different physical levels. So neurological, there's different things that can happen: seizures, things in the brain and the heart, the lungs, liver and kidneys, the skin, the nails, face and eyes. And again, it's not everybody, but these are the different things that can be present. And then what does the timeline of TSC look like? So one of the earliest signs that we see are cardiac rhabdomyomas, and those can be seen on third trimester ultrasound. And then next, we can see the brain findings. So the tubers, the epilepsy, and sometimes TAND can be present pretty early on, as you've heard. And so even earlier than less than 2 years, the rhabdomyomas and the cortical dysplasias can actually be seen on third trimester ultrasound. And then later on, the skin manifestations come about, and then the retinal lesions, and then the kidney lesions, and then lung lesions can happen in women over 16. And so I understand that the audience here is folks who are providing early intervention and like how you might recognize a genetic condition. So I thought to focus on the neurocutaneous. And so what does that mean? That means that symptoms are present in both the brain, neuro, and also the skin, cutaneous. And so the neuro part of it is an MRI, and this is showing the cortical dysplasias that can be seen on an MRI. But if you're doing early intervention with a patient, it's less likely that they're going to come in with a picture of their MRI. More than likely, you're going to see their skin first. And so this is one thing that you can notice. These facial angiofibromas are predominant in TSC. And what distinguishes this from acne is that it includes the bridge of the nose. Typically in acne, the lesions are just on the cheeks. And then on the skin, these hypomelanotic macules, you might also see them somewhere on Google called ash leaf spots, are these light patches that we can see pretty early on, especially sometimes even in the nursery. These can be noticed. And the key thing is that there's more than 3, and then they're over a centimeter. Usually whenever I point out these light spots during a talk, people start checking their skin and seeing like, oh goodness, do I have 1 or do I have more? But they need to be more than 3, and they need to be pretty big. Also, this is called a shagreen patch, and this is often seen on the lower back, but it can be seen pretty high up on the neck. There's this raised area on the skin. It's not harmful, but it's just another marker that maybe that person has tuberous sclerosis. And then we took the time to do this paper a few years ago, looking at the racial differences in these manifestations of tuberous sclerosis. And the potential effects on diagnosis and care, because it's hard to treat a condition when you don't recognize it. And one of the things that we saw in our clinic is that there were folks, patients who would come in that were Black or African American, and they would have the same skin manifestations of TSC, but they weren't being recognized as having TSC. And sometimes I would ask, like, well, what? And these were all people who had seen a physician had seen the skin lesions, and they were not diagnosed as being related to TSC. And so I'd ask, like, what did they say it was? And a lot of people got told that the facial angiofibromas were acne or that they were moles. The hardest one I heard, and it sounds like a joke, but it's not. The parents said that their child, who was biracial, the primary care physician said, well, those light spots are because you're white and he's Black, and so your baby's just spotted. I'm like, there's no such thing as a spotted child. And so based on all of those things, we decided to get together with the Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance, and we actually did this manuscript. And as a part of it, we did a mini atlas to show people what these lesions might look like in different skin types. And so these are the hypomelanotic macules. You can see if the skin is darker, they're easier to see. In skin that's very fair, you might have to use what's called a Woods lamp in order to see that. And then we illustrated how the facial angiofibromas would look different. And so you can see in lighter skin, they're more likely to be red or have like a pinkish hue, but in darker skin, they're more likely to be flesh colored or darker. But we want people to be able to recognize that. This is a cephalic plaque. It's bigger than the facial angiofibromas, and it's raised and dark. And another example of the shagreen patch. Now that is all in TSC. There are also other neurocutaneous conditions you guys might see coming in. And then here, these are lesions, these darker lesions, hyperpigmented macules are what we can see in folks with neurofibromatosis. They can also have swelling around the eyelid. And again, these darker lesions are pretty symbolic of that. And then here, this is what's called a port wine stain. And that is symbolic of a condition called Sturge-Weber syndrome. Okay. The key about the skin findings, one key is that if you notice multiple skin findings and that only the child has, which would be sporadic, or everybody has, which means it might indicate that it's genetic. The other thing that you might see when you come into clinic, and hopefully this works, is some abnormal movements. Okay. Let's see. Are you guys able to see the movie? Because it popped up on my other screen.
It's not popping up on our end.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to try to see if I can switch it. Let's go back. Okay. Okay, let's try again. Can you guys still see the screen?
We can see the screen. It's the video's not popping up though.
Okay. What about here? Can you see it now?
No,
It looks like you've just shared PowerPoint specifically instead of sharing your entire screen. So we wouldn't be able to see anything except PowerPoint.
Okay, okay. So let's see, because I really want you guys to see this. This is important.
Yeah, when you hit share, if you'll just choose screen instead of the PowerPoint app, it should work.
Okay, okay. Let's try that. Entire screen. Screen one, share.
Dr. Gipson, maybe if you can't get it to
There we go.
play, never
Okay.
mind.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, go here, here, here. Okay. All right. And now you can see
That
it,
did it.
right? Beautiful. Because this is very important, and it was worth my awkward pause. So I'll start it over. So what you can see is this beautiful little baby. I don't know the baby person. I just found the baby on Facebook. And it almost looked like she's having a hiccup. Like and then she just jerks. I'll make it bigger. Another pretty little baby looking all happy. And then just a little jerk. And then here we have a head drop, another precious baby. And so the point of that is, as they're saying in the video here, even though the movements are very subtle and they are often misdiagnosed as hiccups or something else, those are very devastating seizures. They're called infantile spasms. And what's happening when the baby's having those little jerks is in the brain, if you do like an EEG to monitor brain activity, there's complete loss of control. And there's almost like no normal activity. So if you're ever working with a baby and you see those are a neurologic and developmental emergency. So very important to recognize those. Okay. So next we're going to talk about, we talked about TAND, and we're going to talk about the natural TAND clusters. So in order to figure out like what symptoms of TAND a person has, we do what's called the TAND SQ, or the TAND self-quantified checklist. And it was made by that group that also did Tandem 2. This is what we did in Tandem 1, like with the first part. And basically, even though this is a little blurry, this is a free checklist online. If you Google TAND-SQ or you go to the TS Alliance website, you'll find it. And you're able to go through and identify any symptoms of TAND. The very first section is like early development. The second section is like current development. The third section is where we spend the most time, is on behaviors. We talk about school. We talk about neuropsychological level. So each level of the umbrella is captured by this checklist. And what we find is that the way the questions are answered, the questions that are answered positively, they cluster into these natural clusters. So there's a hyperactive impulsive cluster, mood and anxiety, dysregulated behavior, neuropsychological, scholastic, and ASD or autism spectrum like cluster. And once you kind of identify where your symptoms lie, what we've done is then create this website, here you go, where you can go, this tandtoolkit.org, also another free website. And for each cluster, if you select a cluster, you're going to go to that cluster, and they'll have a YouTube video with the cluster lead talking about that cluster. And then not just like, oh, look at what you have, but what you can do, like what are things you can do on your own at home, and what can you seek? Because what we recognize is that unfortunately, not everybody has the opportunity to come to a TAND clinic or have specialists, because this is a global consortium. And so when we were talking about the autism light cluster, one of the things that came up in discussion was, what about the role of ABA? And you can see here, the cluster lead for Autism Light Cluster is Nola Chambers, who's a speech language pathologist in South Africa. And she said, well, Tanjala, we have 2 BCBAs for the country of South Africa. So they can't provide one-to-one therapy for all the kids who need it. And so with that in mind, we wanted to make sure we help families to find and identify free things and resources that they can do on their own. Okay. The next thing that we understand about TSC, and this is part of the research that I've been working on, is early language in TSC. And what we found so far is these are infants with TSC. The TD stands for typically developing infants who came into a lab, and these are typically developing infants who were monitored at home using a device called Lena. And what we noted is that here, canonical babbling, the way the infants make sounds, the sounds that they should make, like the buzz sounds and duh sounds, are much less frequent than you see in typically developing infants. So for somebody providing early intervention to individuals with TSC, that would be something to notice, like what is their amount and rate of speech, even at an early age. And if you notice that there's a delay, then that might be something to provide early intervention for. And we're continuing to work on that and the implications of that in TSC. So what are the treatment options? Definitely early interventions. That's why we're here. I believe in early intervention. Speech and language, audiology, occupational therapy, physical therapy. But in TSC, also in TSC specifically, folks are looking at how do we he used strategies for preventing epilepsy with the possibility of impacting TAND and TSC. And so this is newer work. There's one study that suggested that treating early didn't make a bigger difference in development outcomes in the US. And there was a study done in Poland that says that it does make a difference. So what we do clinically is give the parents a choice. My vote is always early intervention. And so the idea here is, should we be giving treatment at diagnosis or when the EEG changes? But right now the standard of care is once the seizure starts, we start treatment. And so that's kind of a modifier. I'm not saying what people should do, but something to be aware of, that the treatment of epilepsy is highly correlated to neurodevelopmental outcome and the timing of that treatment and the type of treatment. So that's something very important for folks to be discussing with their neurologists. So what are the key takeaways? One, early recognition of TSC and other conditions is possible. Even just by looking at the skin or noticing seizures or noticing early delays. And of course, early intervention is beneficial. And we have therapy options, and we also have targeted medication management options. And just emphasize, and I can't overemphasize the importance of interdisciplinary care and coordination. With that, I thank you for your attention and happy to turn it back over. Let's see, I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gipson.
Mhm.
So we can start taking some questions. If you want to add a question to the Q&A, you are more than welcome to do that. Laura, any follow-up comments for Dr.
I do
Gipson?
have 2 follow-up comments. I made a note to myself to not forget. First of all, I want to be really clear that I shared stories about David, my son, and I want to be really clear that I did that with his permission. He thinks Dr. Gipson hung the moon. And we'll be there in June. We'll see you then, June. But I wanted to be sure, I think it's wrong of us, even when our kids are very small. I see it on Facebook, talking about our children without their permission. And I just think it's important to let you know that I had David's permission to share all of that with you. He has come a long, long way. In fact, at the TSC Alliance in DC in February, I told them that I had told my husband several years ago, we're so lucky David has done as well as he has with this rare disease. And he said, Laura, there was no luck about it. We've worked our asses off. We decided that needs to be a t-shirt. But the other thing I want to say is I talked a lot about what's important to, what's important for, and I want to be really clear. My son obviously has good expressive language and can tell me things that are important to him, but some of our kids don't have expressive language or don't use a lot of words to speak. It doesn't mean you can't figure out what's important to them. You watch what they do. You watch where they spend their time. You watch what they're drawn to, what they love, what they stay away from. Even people, who do they light up when they see, and who do they avoid? It tells you a lot about what's important to your loved one, even if they don't have the words to tell you. I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. Latrice says, I love this as a TSC mom myself. My son wears the same shorts every day. We have 7 pairs. He wears the same similar shirts every day too. We also have a golden retriever as a service dog. Love hearing our similarities. Cool. And an L.P.C. Cool. Elizabeth is here from the TSC Alliance. Please chat with her if you'd like to get connected. She can connect you with support team. Absolutely get connected with the TSC Alliance if you haven't already. John says, I'm a dad of a TSC toddler. Once the presence of infantile spasms and or hypsarrhythmia are confirmed via EEG, what is your target timeline to get them under control to avoid severe developmental delays or other issues? I'll turn that back to you, Dr. Gipson.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Thank you, John, for your question. As soon as possible. We are doing a study called Baby Talk in TSC, and we're working on getting more funding next year to extend that to look at just that question, because we don't know yet. I'm not a natural researcher, I just simply got tired of saying, I don't know, especially when it comes to early development and the predictors. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at now is like, how much, what is the timeline like? So clinically, what we say is just as quickly as possible, be very aggressive with seizure management. Sometimes individuals, especially with certain and I'm not like promoting any particular medication without seeing a patient, but sometimes people will say, oh, well, maybe let's use a little bit of medication, maybe. Those seizures, I think, I always think of seizures as like the fire at the campsite. You want to put it out at the campsite before it becomes a forest fire. That's my general approach, and I'll be praying that those get under control for you guys.
Yeah, if we came onto the scene of TSC about 10 years early. If that had been an option, it would have changed my son's life. He presented with infantile spasms at the age of 3 months, and there was no treatments like that. So yeah, Robert asks, so you suggest getting families on the Medicaid waivers as early as possible, correct? And I said, yes, like today. You don't want to wait and then later realize you're going to need some help and then find yourselves on a long waiting list. So get on the wait list. If you come off the wait list and you say, gee, we don't need help after all, no harm done. Other questions or comments? I'm looking at the chat. Any other questions? If you're not connected with a TSC Center of Excellence, I suggest you try to get there. I have friends who have used the hospital that's closest to them, and I just always say, those are great doctors, but they don't know TSC. You need to find a doctor who knows TSC because it's a rare disease. I mean, I live in a rural part of East Texas, and I know more about TSC than probably every medical professional in this area. They're nice guys, they're nice girls, they're great experts, but they don't know this disease. They might have heard about it or read about it in a textbook, but they don't treat people with it regularly. And we need people who treat TSC regularly because they know the disease. Anything you want to add, Dr. Gipson? Great job.
No, that's absolutely right, Laura. And it's like, it's knowing the disease and then being connected to the latest research by going to the conferences, like the World Conference that's coming up this summer, and prayerfully, you know, anybody who's impacted by TSC can get there this summer. That World Conference happens every 4 years. It's amazing. Everybody who does anything with TSC is there. And so we're having these conversations and we're on the advisory board and we're getting the latest information. We're not waiting for it to come out in a textbook or a journal. And so I think being connected with people that are close to the heartbeat of TSC is important because there's so many things that are changing. So I totally agree.
The World Conference is going to, Elizabeth just put it up in the chat. Look at it. There's a link there. It's on their website. It may be too late to apply for a scholarship. I don't know, but by all means, I mean, that is where I found out about TAND, was at a World Conference 4 years ago. Never had heard of it, still probably wouldn't know much about it. And we met Dr. Gipson there. I remember asking her, so he's 32, is it too late? And she said, no, I'd love to work with him. And she's been life-changing. Thank you, thank you. Because Dr. Gipson not only is at a TSC Center of Excellence, but she runs a TAND clinic. And if you're dealing with some significant TAND stuff, see if you can't get to a TAND clinic. I remember the first time we met with Dr. Gipson, you asked us questions nobody else has ever asked us, and we've been associated with Centers of Excellence most of his life. But you asked us stuff nobody else has ever asked. You know it.
Thank you, Laura. It's my absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for your presentations. Dr. Gipson, thank you for being here. Laura, always a pleasure as usual. And thank you all for being here. The recorded version of this video is not eligible for CE use. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Gladys Pryor, at gladys.pryor@bcm.edu. You will receive an email within 24 hours with links to the CEU surveys. Remember, we do offer social work and nursing CEUs, so you'll get a link for that. You should be getting something like, I think it's within 10 business days after you fill out your survey. So don't expect it within 10 business days if you have not filled out that survey. You'd have to do the survey first. And then stay tuned for our next season. This was the end of this season. So we will continue our health professional webinars in the fall, and we hope to hear from you. Make sure that you email me. Let me know that you want to be alerted whenever these do come back. And we will speak to everyone then. Thank you so much.
And I put my email in the chat in case anybody wants to get in touch with me about something I talked about today. I'm happy to answer questions. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Dr. Gipson.
Thank
You
you.
have
And
the
I saw John's message. John, if you could email Laura, I'll get you that information about the study.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Thank you.